Welcome, everybody, to the United Wrestling Podcast. My name is Nick Bonanno. I am the executive producer and showrunner for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and the United Wrestling Network senior official. And I am joined today by two of my absolute favorite correspondents for Primetime Live. First of all, grabbing those kisses right out of the air, sticking them right in my chest pocket here, because from News 4 San Antonio and Fox 29, we have Joe Galli. Welcome,
Hey,
Joe.
everybody. Hey, well, it's so great to be back. This is one of my favorite things to do, talk wrestling with some really awesome people, including Alyssa Marino. Great to see you,
everybody.
There she is. You just heard the name, Alyssa Marino, fresh off of Let's Get Cereal down in the scenic Orlando, Florida area. Alyssa, how you doing today?
I'm full of cereal and ready to talk about it.
But wait a minute. What type of cereal did we have today? What type of cereal did we have?
Okay, I tried the Magic Spoon cereal.
The stuff that's got no sugar? Yeah.
It was rough. The texture, I don't know.
Raving review.
It wasn't.
Next up, let's toss things
movies.
over to our sponsors.
We talked about horror movies, and that kind of saved the whole live stream. So.
Good balance there.
Exactly.
Well, we have, speaking of cereal, we do have a lot to sink our teeth into in today's edition. So I figure we get right into it. First of all, of course, we're going to talk about the United Wrestling Network World Championship, which has been the talk of the United Wrestling Network the last couple of years. We're super happy that we're finally able to crown a world champion, and Primetime Live is the most appropriate place for just that. I would say for sure. So,
Nick, I want to make sure people know just how long of a process it is, because I remember seeing that belt back when I was calling the action with Johnny LaQuasto at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. So that just shows how long this process has been to build to this spectacular show and this spectacular series of episodes that's going to be on Primetime Live. And the other thing, that picture is gorgeous, and I can't tell you how much love I've seen on all of our faithful friends on Twitter about how many people are saying that that's arguably the most beautiful belt in the business right now.
It's hard to beat. I can't think of any other title that captures quite the worldliness, and also it's a simplicity in design, but executed extremely well. And you mentioned how gorgeous this photo is, taken by our staff photographer Justin Cotterill,
so good.
who is just fantastic in all of his adventures there. Alyssa, in looking at this title yourself, does anything come to mind? What does it spark? In the mind of looking at a championship like this, what kind of prestige or things like that come to mind?
Absolutely. I think it's really, you can see all the kind of the flags across the top of the belt. And I think it really symbolizes just the caliber of talent from across the world. This is a global kind of recognition, and it's really, truly rarefied air at Primetime Live. So I think it really speaks to, I think, the inclusion and the talent, the diversity of styles and countries and where people are represented. I think it's absolutely stunning, and it's really, really something special.
Couldn't agree more. And now, speaking of those different styles and different competitors, let's jump into the competitors right now. First, let's take a look at Mike Bennett. Joe Galli, you have some experience working with Mike. What's going on with Mike? What's he been up to lately, and what brings him back to Primetime Live?
Well, I think people that have been watching Primetime Live know exactly what Mike Bennett's been up to. I mean, he is just forging forward with a new chapter in his career, and you can see his accolades there: an accomplished tag team champion, a former X Division champion. But everything's different right now for Mike Bennett. He wants to solidify his legacy. That's why on episode 1, he did go after the 10 pounds of gold in a furious balls to the wall matchup with Nick Aldis. Came up short, but you have to remember, he did not tap out. He passed out to that Kingsland Cloverleaf. He is hungry. He is determined. He's in the best shape of his life. And, if you're going to make a pick, I mean, it's hard to pick with so much great talent that you have on this bracket here. But I feel like Mike Bennett, he'd be a safe bet. If you're going to look at Vegas odds, he's got to be favored in this matchup because he's got so much on those giant muscly shoulders. He wants to solidify himself in history, and what better way to do that than by being the first ever United Wrestling Network World Champion?
I agree with that. I think it will definitely be a game of stature and physicality, like you mentioned just a moment ago. Someone who I'd say is just as athletic as Mike Bennett, but I think has a stature advantage on him is our next competitor. That is Watts. Alyssa, tell us a little bit about Watts and what fans might be familiar with, or something that they might not know about this man we're seeing in front of us here.
Well, Watts, I think, is an absolute kind of powerful heavyweight monster. He used to be referred to as the squash god. He is an absolutely dominant force to be reckoned with throughout the United Wrestling Network. And you can see on the screen here the Hollywood Heritage champion, former Hollywood Heritage champion, but he had actually secured that title after winning the 2019 Red Carpet Rumble. He held the United World Tag Team Championships as a solo competitor. I think that speaks a lot to the power and dominance of this man, as he's doing the work of two competitors as himself. We saw him on Primetime Live partnering with the new NWA television champion, the Pope, in a victory over Zicky Dice and Effie. So I think that he is a rock solid competitor. His strength, his conditioning, I think, is better than it's ever been. And I say truly a force to be reckoned with in this tournament.
Absolutely, for sure. So throughout 2020, some people have said that taking time off is their worst enemy. For someone like Watts, I think taking time off from active competing all of the time has been a great advantage to him. So for any competitor, sometimes, motion is the lotion, they'll say, but for Watts, he's been able to heal up. He's coming back stronger than ever. We'll get into the brackets a little later, but I fear for whoever is going against the man called Watts here.
Yeah.
So next up.
Boo.
So Galli, you know this, man.
Boo.
I think you mean shh.
No, I'm going to say boo and be nice and loud and ruin the librarian's day. Look, okay, you can't step aside and not talk about these long list of accolades that Peter Avalon has. Been in the business for a long time. He everywhere he goes, he wants to be the top guy there. Having a little bit of a losing streak over on AEW for you fans that haven't been paying attention to AEW Dark with his long feud with his former tag team partner, Brandon Cutler. And you know what? I feel like, losers are going to stay losers. And if he's going to keep, losing matches and having these double disqualifications, he's not coming into this tournament with a winner's attitude. Me and Peter got heat going back for years. So he is not my pick whatsoever. But I will say he will show up to this tournament with the best robe. Guaranteed.
I absolutely agree with that. Man, Alyssa, do you have anything to add to that? I was hoping for a little bit more positivity from Mr. Galli here.
Boo! Boo!
Wow, Joe, that's an incredible me impression. How did you get so good? I think that there's something to be said for, even going as far back as producer Peter Avalon. This man knows the ins and outs of the game. He's, I think, truly someone that's very cunning, someone that's, say what you will, he's well-read, he's crafty. I think that this is someone that can truly study his entire playing field, and maybe I think he could really be a factor in the tournament. He's held his own with talent across the board, and he may not be as internationally well known as some of the other stars in this tournament, but I think he's been around for years, really honing his craft. So you don't get to be the longest reigning Hollywood Heritage champion for nothing,
I agree. Another person you mentioned producer Peter Avalon there for a moment. Of course, producer for Championship Wrestling from Arizona. Another star who was born in Championship Wrestling from Arizona and then exploded onto the scene as our next competitor. That is Carl Fredricks. So Carl, coming out of the New Japan dojo, based in Los Angeles at the Los Angeles dojo, of course, star of New Japan Strong, and currently the APW Worldwide Internet Champion, or recently was. Have either of you worked with Carl before? What have you seen from this young man, and how has he grown beyond where he was when he first came into the United Wrestling Network years ago?
Well, I got to say, back in my days when I was covering Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, he had a few matches there before he got inducted into that New Japan dojo. And you could just see the evolution of Carl Fredricks as both an athlete and as a personality. And he's just got this incredible gravitational force around him. You look at him and you say, this guy's the next big guy. And this could be that first major chapter in his career, being able to be the first United Wrestling Network heavyweight champion. This is his opportunity. This is his shot. And if any of the young lions can do it, this one can.
For sure. Keep an eye out for whoever his opponent is. Again, we'll get into the brackets later. Keep an eye on that drop kick that he does. Carl can get a lot of fight, and he plants him right on the kisser. So, talk about strong style, talk about all that, talk about a little bit of flair. Carl brings all of those elements together into his wrestling style. For anyone who saw his match against Slice Boogie a couple of weeks ago on Primetime Live, I don't think Slice knew what he was getting himself into. And coming out of that match, you could see that he still has quite a lot of work to do. even to go toe-to-toe with someone like Carl Fredricks. So, Carl, do not underestimate Carl. He is on the rise for sure, and capturing the United Wrestling Network World Championship in its first inaugural run, that just sets the stage for Carl Fredricks.
Really does.
So our next competitor, possibly the most world-traveled of everyone within our brackets today, is a 20-year veteran, Fred Rosser. Alyssa, what do you know about Fred?
I mean, Mr. No Days Off. He was recently featured on Primetime Live, victorious in a three-way bout against Cowboy James Storm and Chris Masters. I believe he recently signed with New Japan, so he's coming out of the New Japan roster. This man, he's a former WWE Tag Team Champion, part of the Primetime Players. He's competed in Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royals. He's dynamic. He's dedicated. He's ready. He's got a heart of gold, and I think, the strength to match it.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, just his whole Stop the Hate campaign and all the work that he's doing to inspire the youth out there and all the people who are fans of professional wrestling. I mean, what an incredible backstory that he has. I don't know who can't root for Fred Rosser,
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I'd say so. Someone with from one pedigree to another, I would say, is Davey Boy Smith Jr. I think he's the only second-generation competitor in this tournament, and he has his own long list of accolades himself. You see, 2 times NWA World Tag Team Champion, of course, the son of British Bulldog, WWE World Tag Team Championship, IWGP World Tag Team Champion. So he's a major heavyweight in this tournament bracket here. Like we mentioned before, there's going to be a lot of physicality, a lot of different styles, but we haven't necessarily talked as much about the actual heavyweight style. Watts is big, Carl's big, Fred's big, Bennett's big, but working with cruiserweights all the time versus working with true heavyweights is a completely different ball game. And so I think Davey Boy Smith Jr. is the one who's going to be able to bring the most experience in that realm and really surprise a couple people in this tournament, for especially those who maybe haven't seen him in a little bit.
And not only that, I mean, he is a technical master as well. For a guy of his size, the way he can manipulate someone's body, I mean, he might have the best technical skills in this entire tournament as well. So he's got a lot of weapons that he's going to bring to the fight.
For sure. Next, we go to, I'd say, the biggest surprise of the tournament. He has been off the scene for quite a while, at least the last couple months for sure. Eric Redbeard has been the talk of Twitter, has been the talk of all our social media. People are begging to get this pay-per-view. They're chomping at the bit to see what this man is going to do. Alyssa, what do you think is going to go on here with Eric Redbeard in the United World Title tournament?
I mean, I think that this man's accolades are truly incredible. And we talk about being world traveled. This man's competed in Europe, Canada, Mexico, Australia, Saudi Arabia. I think every time that competitors travel, you pick up something along the way. He, did a tour of Japan. So I think that there's so much that's going to factor into his style. And also the fact that, we were talking about people that haven't competed in a long time. We haven't seen Eric Redbeard in months. So I think that one of the things he brings to this competition, to this tournament, is unpredictability. I don't think anyone really has a sense of where he's at right now. As far as training, what's his regimen looking like? What is he doing to keep in his peak physical conditioning? Where's his mindset at? So I think this is all things that are going to play an effect in his performance and in the minds of his competitors.
Very true. And our final entrant into the United World Title tournament, people who have been watching our programming week to week have seen quite a lot, and someone who's a bit polarizing. That is the Dirty Daddy, Chris Dickinson. As you can see here, international star, 2 times Evolve champion, and is currently trained in catch style with Josh Barnett. Every time that he's been into California for United Wrestling Network, he has made an entire training weekend out of it. He's been doing lots of camps. So we talk about technical wrestling with Davey Boy Smith. I think what Chris Dickinson has been able to bring into this is still a little bit technical wrestling, but a little bit different, maybe more MMA inspired. Joe Galli, what do you think about the Dirty Daddy, the Filthy Father, I
gotta tell you, as a person who believes Big Trouble in Little China is one of the best films ever created, and he's wearing Kurt Russell's shirt.
Yes,
and wears that all the time. And I actually own one of those shirts as well. I don't look nearly as good in it, but so he's obviously got a little piece of my heart just because, I just love that film so much. And obviously we got our little simpatico when it comes to our cinema diet, but maybe not as our protein diet. But look at those arms. He's huge, and we've seen it, and he's got intensity, and he just wants to prove that he is the best wrestler on the planet, and the best way to do that is to win a tournament like this one.
Sure. Going over to the chat for a minute. Actually, we're joined by current United World Tag Team Champion Andy Brown. Says, this is my pick.
Oh,
that's a good choice. It's a good choice, Andy.
It's a good choice.
Yeah,
Bold prediction.
For sure. So now let's take a look at the actual brackets themselves to see who will be going against which other person in the tournament. And all right, coming out first, Eric Redbeard and Watts. I said at the beginning of this broadcast that I feared for whoever stood across the ring from Watts. I don't know if I feel the same way now that I'm looking at it being Eric Redbeard. What do you think this is going to look like, Alyssa?
I mean, again, I think it's the unpredictability factor. You have two virtual monsters, behemoths, and I think it's just going to be kind of a knockdown, drag-out brawl. And I am very much looking forward to it. I think that there's a certain level of force and a certain level of focus that's going to be coming from both of these competitors. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot on the line. And I think that these two giants are really going to go to town.
I agree with that. And not only that, but I think, Watts might not have the international exposure that Redbeard has had. But as of right now, and you alluded to this at the beginning, Nick, I mean, Watts is in the best shape that he's ever been in. And we're not just talking about muscle size. I'm also thinking about his conditioning. So I think the longer that matchup goes, the more it's going to favor Watts. If Watts, he's used to being the big monster powerhouse, but if he can get on his bicycle and drag this into the deep water, he could be moving on to the next round.
I think that's a great perspective to think about this. I'm sure Watts has been thinking about that as well. So it's going to be something that Redbeard has got to keep in mind going into this one. So we jump down to the next matchup here. We got Chris Dickinson versus Peter Avalon. You just want Peter to get beat up.
I'm so looking forward to this. You know what I'm so upset about is it's just not going to last long enough for me. Chris Dickinson's going to get in there, the bell's going to ring, and he's going to rip Peter Avalon in half like a piece of paper. It's going to be no contest. Chris Dickinson is going to destroy Peter Avalon, and I'm going to love watching it. Chris Dickinson is essentially getting a bye. That's how confident I am in his performance coming up on Primetime Live. Peter Avalon, get out. Go on back to Florida. You're done, son.
I don't see how you could be so inconsiderate about this. Like, I know personal gripes aside, which I clearly are not aside if we're talking about it like this, but I think we talked about Dickinson's technique. We talked about his strength, all things like that. Peter is by far faster than Chris Dickinson. If he can't catch Pete, then there's no way he's gonna be able to snap him in half. So, and especially
he's gonna have a problem. He's not gonna have a problem.
I'm just saying. Look,
it's gonna be bad.
Look,
it's gonna be quick. Don't blink on this match. Don't blink on this match because you might miss the finish.
What if the finish is the martinis from Peter Avalon? Is what I'm saying, because that's a move that you can get from out of nowhere. Your opponent doesn't even see it coming, and bam, they're out.
Look, we've been talking about Chris Dickinson being a student of the game. He's going to be watching the tape. Obviously, he's probably a fan of AEW because who isn't? You see their stuff on Dark. He's going to know exactly what Peter Avalon's going to be coming with, and it's just not going to be enough. Dickinson's just going to run over him like a Mack truck going up against a hard-boiled egg.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, that was quite a visual.
Yeah.
Wow. But Nick, it's like you said, Dickinson is that polarizing of a figure. That you have your one half of the United World Tag Team Champions, Andy Brown, and broadcast partner Joe Galli, both making very bold predictions in the favor of the Dirty Daddy. But I think that's something to consider is the fact that Dickinson is he's a very passionate competitor. He's brutal and he's intense. But I think that Peter Avalon might have a little bit more of a kind of a mentality going into this match. And of course, I'm no one to make any predictions, but I think that there's something to consider about the fact that Dickinson may be thinking just go, go, go. And Peter Avalon might be playing a little bit of a longer game of chess here. Something to consider.
And I think Dickinson will take that chessboard and beat Peter Avalon so bad you'll have to take him to the hospital. There's no question. Come on. Well, listen, you can make picks. You can make picks. That's the whole point, is to make picks. And Chris Dickinson, at least in this matchup, is my pick. You know, you go further into the next bracket, whether it's Redbeard or Watts, we can have a conversation there. That's going to be a competitive matchup. But Peter Avalon, sorry, Charlie, you're going home. Shh, be quiet on the plane ride. Shh.
Oy. All right. Well, probably my favorite or the most anticipated matchup for me in this first round is coming up next. That is Carl Fredricks and Fred Rosser. We mentioned before, both regulars on New Japan Strong, both very much with that strong style. Carl with the dynamic style of having a little bit of flash mixed in with the very fierce kicks and striking ability that he has. Rosser, well traveled, big powerhouse in his own right, and so much. Quick side story. This is not a United Wrestling event, but one time I was refereeing Fred Rosser versus NXT's Jake Atlas, and I wasn't sure what to expect out of Fred. I hadn't seen him on the scene in a while. This is maybe a year or two ago, and Jake is a very, very quick, fast-paced wrestler, as everyone can see, very acrobatic in his style, and it can kind of attack out of nowhere. That mixed with a bit of lucha. Fred had no problem knocking Jake down to size. As much as Jake threw at him, Fred was able to throw back twice as hard. So I would even though maybe Carl Frederick isn't as I would say as light on his feet, so perhaps as Jake Atlas is, and strikes a little bit differently, maybe more ground based. I think that a thing that Carl really needs to focus on is, just like I said before with Dickinson, if he couldn't get his hands on Peter, he wasn't going to be able to snap him in half. I think Carl's game in this it has to be a bit of agility over Fred Rosser, because even though Carl can hit hard, and he does, and he's very much the athlete that everyone else in this competition is not, I think Fred is going to have to really buckle down and kind of corner Carl in a way in order to compete and to advance into the next round of this one. So, any thoughts on either of those competitors, Fredericks or Rosser, in this particular matchup?
I agree completely with everything that you said there, Nick. And I mean, Carl Fredericks, I think this is really going to come down to who's going to have the better attitude and the better mindset when they come into this matchup. And I think Carl Fredericks, I mean, he's showing so much growth, so much maturity, and his style has evolved so much, and rather quickly as well during his time at the New Japan Dojo. This will be the biggest match of his career so far. I would say that it at least ranks in the top 5 for him right there. So that means there's a lot to prove. And if he can handle that pressure, he can move on in this bracket. But Fred Rosser, he ain't going to lie down for the 1, 2, 3 for anybody. So this is going to be one of the matches to watch for sure.
I think both coming out of that kind of New Japan style, the New Japan feel, all the focus, the determination, the dedication to their craft. I think that it's going to be something for sure to watch. I do think Fred Rosser, with just the experience factor of it, I think that Carl Fredericks, with the leaps and bounds that he's making as a competitor, I still think Fred Rosser is going to be coming out victorious. I think that there's something to be said for the experience and the training, the tutelage, everything that Fred Rosser has gone through to make him the competitor he is today.
And the final first round match for the United World Title tournament. I'm so used to, it's been such a while. This has been such anticipation getting to the world title that I'm so used to everything else. So
well, not
finally,
only that, Nick, we have the disadvantage of being, the one thing that you can really critique David Marquez on, and I've told him this personally, I don't have a problem telling us, why does everything have to have the longest title? Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Like, can we condense some stuff here? Everything's got to have a super long name, but at least this one really makes sense. But I think we're going to have to find a way to condense it just to be able to talk about it. But nevertheless, this match here, you mentioned your last part of the bracket. That's your match to watch. This is, for me, the match that I want to see the most right here. Mike Bennett coming in hungry. He's got a fresh win, but he still, he remembers that he has that big loss against Nick Aldis on episode 1. Davey Boy Smith Jr. coming into unfamiliar territory, place that he's never wrestled before. Mike Bennett is very comfortable with Thunder Studios. So this one is really going to be, it's going to go the distance. And this is one I have no idea. Who's going to come out on top on this one.
When I think about this matchup too, actually Todd Kennelly said something really that stuck with me about Davey Boy Smith Jr. He said that he's etched in tradition. And I consider just the lineage of this competitor, just the family background. You have WWE Hall of Famer, British Bulldog. You have, I mean, the Hart family on the other side, the just a long list of wrestling legacies. I think that there's something to be said for the importance of family for both of these competitors. Obviously, Mike Bennett in the premiere of Primetime Live, we talked about his importance of family. He's, a family man. He does all of this for the honor, the legacy of his family as well. And I cannot wait to see these two go at it. But Joe, you say, Davey Boy Smith Jr. coming into unfamiliar territory, but it's like, it's a wrestling ring. This is what this man does. I think that if it's a ring that he's in, I think he knows exactly how to handle himself. But yes, you are correct. Bennett coming from, I think, more recent of a victory here at Primetime Live. So he's got to have that little bit of motivation that's going to be pushing him through this tournament.
Momentum goes a long way. And, if you have a little bit of it, it can push you farther, which is another reason why I think Peter Avalon's going to fall short, because he has zero momentum in professional wrestling right now.
Or is that going to fuel him more, Joe?
No, not happening. I've known Peter a long time.
We're going to find out this coming Tuesday, actually, since Peter Avalon and Chris Dickinson is kicking off the title tournament. So
Dickinson commit a homicide live on pay-per-view. That's what I'm looking at right here. Peter Avalon, you're just going to get hurt, buddy. Don't even get on the plane. Don't even come back from Orlando or Jacksonville. Don't even come from Florida. It's not worth your time. No, you know what? I changed my mind. Please show up to Primetime Live so I get to watch Chris Dickinson beat you into a pulp.
Goodness.
I don't even know what else to say with you, Galli.
Jeez. I mean, we know where Galli's going to be with his bucket of popcorn on Tuesday night. My goodness.
I'm so excited.
It'll be Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, the 27th of October.
Start putting ads on Craigslist for a new librarian, because he's not going to be able to even turn a page on a book when Chris Dickinson is done with him.
There is an extensive collection of book on tape or on digital at the library that I hear that Peter Avalon and Leva Bates have been occupying. And so going from that, I'm sorry?
Audiobooks exist for a reason, so.
Right. Of course, one other match that has been announced so far for this coming Tuesday is a big rematch from AEW. This is now for the NWA Women's Championship. Current champion Thunder Rosa taking on Serena Deeb. Joe Galli, where's your head at? What do you got going into this one?
I've got a lot of insider information with Thunder Rosa, because we talk quite regularly. We live in the same city, and she is. If you just take a look, honestly, at her Instagram account, she is training so hard every single day in a multiple of different MMA and wrestling disciplines. I mean, the amount of work that she's putting in to her Brazilian jiu-jitsu right now is just going to make her an even more lethal competitor in the squared circle. Serena Deeb, I mean, she has all the accolades that come with her. She's an amazing competitor, but Thunder Rosa is at the top of not just the United Wrestling Network and the NWA women's division. I would say that she is at the top of women's professional wrestling, period. And there is no way that anybody's going to be able to knock her off. That being said, Serena Deeb, I mean, she's got to be hungry. She already lost to her once. This is her moment for redemption. So, it's weird to say that Serena Deeb winning a match would be an upset just because of how high of a caliber of an athlete that she is. But I mean, talk about if this isn't the main event for that show, it better be, because it's gonna steal the show no matter what.
Alyssa, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think Deeb is playing the cards a little closer to the vest. Thunder Rosa, she makes it very public, everything that she has been up to, all of the training, what her whirlwind of a schedule looks like. I mean, this woman has gone through, I think, more title defenses in a month than I think, gosh, I mean, I would love to see statistics on that, because I think Thunder Rosa has been absolutely unstoppable. And you talk about the importance of momentum. I mean, the Mera Mera Destruction Tour just keeps on rolling. And I think we're going to see no different at Primetime Live.
Well, Everyone watching, you can see Primetime Live this coming Tuesday, October 27th, live on pay-per-view. On traditional pay-per-view, it is on DirecTV and in-demand pay-per-view. If you prefer to watch it online, it is available on fight.tv in both English and Spanish. So make sure to tune in this coming week. Follow at United Wrestling on Twitter, at United Wrestling Network on Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube. And Alyssa and Joe, where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me at me first. Thank you. You can find me at AYY_Marino, MARINO, on Twitter and Instagram. And follow me on YouTube if you want to watch me eat cereal and talk about stuff.
It's really entertaining. I mean, it's weird. It's weird to say that because, here's the thing. I was never like a big Food Network guy. And I was like, why do you want to watch people cook or eat? And then Great British Baking Show comes on. I'm addicted to that. And then Alyssa comes on and she's making such great content, eating cereal, which is something that I have to step away from. My metabolism has just gone to crap ever since I turned 30. So it's like breakfast is scrambled eggs or nothing. I know it breaks my heart. I'm craving a good cereal. Right. All right. So here, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. I'm going to go to the store today. Okay. I'm going to buy 1 box of cereal.
Sure.
What do I buy?
If you're going to be seasonal, Count Chocula. It's the first one that comes to my head.
Okay. Winner, chicken dinner right there. Y'all can find me right down here at Joe Galli News on Twitter. I'll just take a minute here to ramble on something that's kind of passionate about me that has nothing to do with wrestling, but covering this election here in San Antonio, Texas. There's a lot of people out there that are waiting in very, very long lines to early vote, going to libraries and waiting in the heat for 3 hours just to cast their vote for this election. It's important. There's a lot of issues on this ballot. It's not just the presidency, but there's a lot of issues that impact your community and the people who are going to run your community and are going to be spending a lot of local dollars that might come from the federal government or might come from your tax dollars. So I just want to urge everybody who's watching here. I think early voting started in pretty much all of the 50 states now. So get online, just go to vote.org. All the information's there, and get out and vote early and often.
For sure.
Absolutely. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you soon.